And I've published 20 peer-reviewed papers that specifically deal with orca. But I have also visited orca in 11 different facilities that are held captive. That includes the 3 SeaWorld facilities. And just yesterday, I was in the San Diego facility, where interestingly, I was actually told I had to leave. Now, obviously, SeaWorld is concerned about me being here because I am speaking as a scientist, and they're concerned about what I've observed at their facilities. So I'll leave it at that, but just so that you know, I was told to leave. Now, I have also got experience working briefly with Keiko, who the industry will tell you was a non-success. You would probably know him as Free Willy. It was a success. Now, we also work quite extensively with my project with orca in the wild, and that's what I'd like to do today, is speak to you about the comparisons between orca in captivity and in the wild, to put that into perspective for you. From research, we know that orca travel, on average, 138 miles a day. Now, that's not just a one-day event. This is 2 different studies that have shown these animals are doing this over extended periods. Sometimes, for 44 days, the average distance has been 138 miles. So I wanted to put that into perspective for you. If we take a circle around SeaWorld's proposed new tanks, and we do 122 kilometres or 222 kilometres or 138 miles, that takes us well south of the border. If we do just 2 days travel, that takes us up well north of here. That's 2 days. This new tank does not meet even these basic requirements. No tank ever will. No facility of any sort ever will. It's a true fact. It's a scientifically proven thing. Okay, now there are definitely some populations of orca who don't travel those big distances. We know this, but it's their choice. They are not contained within tanks. They are not sent into medical tanks. They are not separated. They have a choice. And these animals in captivity around the world, including SeaWorld's animals, do not have this choice. Now, we know that orca have been around for a long time. They've been around for approximately 5 million years. Depends on where you divide that line. Now, let's put that into the scale of humans, less than 500,000 years. But again, where do you divide that line? We even go back to 3.6 million years. But orca still have evolved longer than we have. By having these animals first generation, second generation, third generation, even in captivity, you still do not take away the fact that they have evolved in the wild. They have not evolved to live in tiny little concrete boxes. This is an example that you're going to probably see a few times today. Up in the very top, inside the circle, is a little blue box. That little blue box represents one of the tanks at SeaWorld, albeit one at Orlando, not at San Diego, but the concept still applies. The new proposed tank will be approximately the depth of the circle around this box. The yellow line represents an average dive for a single dive of a wild orca. A single dive. They can do anything up to 500 of these in a day in the wild. So a tank that represents that little blue circle up in the top does not meet the needs of these animals. To put it again into perspective for you and something that you can relate to, I did not know the dimensions of the Statue of Liberty. I apologise. I had to look them up. But when I saw them, I was horrified. 4 times the size of the Statue of Liberty for a regular dive for an orca. So let's put that again into perspective of what you would see at this new proposed tank. The new proposed tank would be approximately, at its maximum, 50 to 55 feet deep. Okay? Now the tablet that your wonderful Statue of Liberty holds is 23 feet long. So 2 times the length of the tablet, not 4 times the length of the statue. That's what they're proposing. This is just a bigger box. You will hear SeaWorld say many things about what they do. Some of them are actually pretty good, but some of them are atrocious. Making these animals do tricks is not what they should be doing. They will tell you that coming out and seeing these sort of behaviours, this is normal behaviour. It's not normal behaviour. This is a trick, okay? They liken it to the situation that you see with Orca in Argentina. This is a research project that I'm involved in. The orca there come up onto the beach, but they do it for survival. They do it to hunt their food. This is not a trick. This is a risk for the animals at times, but this is very real. And SeaWorld tries to tell you coming out onto a slide is normal behaviour. It's not. There are fewer than 20 orca in the world who have specialised in this particular behaviour. Now, you've also heard about the teeth. This is a photograph that I took of an orca in SeaWorld. These teeth are broken off, not because of food handling, as you were just told by the esteemed vet. I am not criticising his qualifications. I'm criticising the concept of what he's trying to portray to you. This animal here has tooth damage as an individual, not at a population level, which we do see, but as an individual because it is kept in captivity, because it has chewed on the side of the tanks, because it has chewed on the bars in the tanks. This is not because it has been handling its food. Food handling happens because in the wild, they have to capture their food. In SeaWorld, it's shoved down their throat in handfuls. The animals do not handle their food. In the wild, orca are known to hunt sharks. I know this. I'm one of the scientists who has published about it. SeaWorld will tell you that orca in the wild get tooth damage because of handling sharks. And yes, it's believed that some of them do, but it's not been proven. In New Zealand, these orca, which I see on a regular basis, also specialise in hunting for rays. When they handle the rays and the sharks, this is when we would expect to see teeth damage, if it is as proposed by SeaWorld in their fairy tale concept. But here we have a photograph of an orca handling a ray. This orca, I know, also hunts sharks. You can see very clearly there that its teeth are in pristine, perfect condition. I know of not a single orca in the whole New Zealand population that has a cracked or broken tooth. We recently had some orca turn up in New Zealand that all died. They stranded and died. It was a very tragic event, but 3 of those animals had worn down teeth to the gums, but they were worn down as an age-related food handling situation, not because they were chewing on concrete tanks or bars. So the size of the tank is not going to alleviate the stress issue that has created this problem. Now also, when I was at SeaWorld, I photographed in San Diego the images both on the left and on the right. This is young Nakai. Nakai was injured. SeaWorld told everybody that it was from contact with the side of the tank. Now I quote that, contact with the side of the tank. If that's what their tanks are doing to their animals, this is not a good concept for you guys to be endorsing getting a bigger one. However, I truly believe as a scientist that this was not from contact from a tank. This was from aggression. Close up, you can see 4 puncture marks that match the spacing on orca teeth. And on my professional career, I swear that I truly believe that this was from aggression. Now, Nakai's wound on the right, you can see it's nearly healed, but this is 4 years on and it's still not completely healed. Aggression, I have observed at SeaWorld every time I have gone to any of the parks. This is the same orca, Nakai, hammering into the side of the young calf so hard his rostrum is buried into the side of that calf. I was absolutely horrified and disgusted, not only by what I saw, but by the staff members standing there laughing and telling the public that this was play. In the wild, you never see this. This is what you see. 2 weeks ago, I spent 22 hours with a mother grieving over her dead calf. She carried that calf lovingly for 3 days. That is what happens in the wild. You get true family bonds, not construed by humans. You get families who care for each other. You do not get aggression where young males are nailing young calves against the side of tanks. It just doesn't happen. Now, these two photographs show two animals. The one in the top is the mother of that young calf. These are self-mutilation wounds. These orca have inflicted them themselves because of the stress in their tanks. You can see scars where this has happened previously. This is not a one-off event. Now, the animal on the bottom left, her name is Morgan. She was taken from the wild, albeit under a rescue. Yes, she definitely needed help. We have never denied that. The problem is that SeaWorld now owns her, and SeaWorld holds her in an overseas facility, and SeaWorld's pledge conveniently excludes her. So her offspring will be used because she's not included in your little caveat that you guys have put in place. Let's not even go down the whole thing of the dorsal fins, but suffice it to say that in the wild, less than 1% of adult males have a dorsal fin that is collapsed. But in all aquariums, all around the world, 100% of adult males have collapsed dorsal fins. Now, you don't have to be a scientist to work out that there's some correlation going on there. How much money is SeaWorld going to spend on this? There are all sorts of proposals. But you've also been asked and told to look at the options of sea pens. I know that's not in your mandate. I know that's not in your jurisdiction. But I beg you as individuals to consider it from the bottom of your heart as something that can be recommended to SeaWorld to look at. Cetacean sanctuaries do not have to be scary big things like the vets make them out to be. These places can be monitored, they can be controlled, and believe it or not, the ocean is actually a great place. They'll tell you it's a scary, bad place, but hundreds of thousands of orca manage to survive out there. But because these animals are coming from captivity, they are in a compromised situation, we realise that they may need some level of care beyond just putting them in a sea pen. So it is feasible to have medical pens in there. It is feasible even to go to the extent where SeaWorld could have an off-site facility where the public could go. The public could still see orca. Let's put these animals into a retirement system. Let's put them possibly into a rehabilitation centre and even possibly look at release into the wild. The public doesn't have to be deprived of seeing these animals that are now there, but we can phase them out. And I really hope that you guys will take the right step in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Please remember what we're asking for in the way of audience participation. And we're going to move on now to the next speaker, Venturi. And after this, we will be taking our lunch recess and closed session. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
You have
I'm
15
actually
minutes.
sharing my time with John Hargrove.
Certainly.
So, I have some photographs that are on there, but is it possible to just scroll through them? They're not really, they're just teeth photos and things like that. So thank you very much for having me. I'm here today on behalf of Dr. Jeffrey Venturi and Dr. John Jett. Dr. Venturi practices medicine, is with patients today. Dr. Jett is a professor teaching environmental science. Jeff and John were trainers at SeaWorld's Orlando flagship, working closely with the orcas I will describe. They've published peer-reviewed research papers in a university textbook chapter on orca captivity. I'm Kimberly Venturi, an entrepreneur with a master's degree in urban planning. I'm a California resident and a California voter. We're all three volunteers and give our time to conservation for free. I only mention this because it speaks to our motivation. There are many paid industry representatives or employees who obviously support SeaWorld's policies and practices. Jeff, John, and I are completely independent. We want to share some of the stories SeaWorld does not publicize. None of these stories will be made better by building bigger pools. During Dr. Venturi's time at SeaWorld, he found the killer whale can Duke, or Duke, to be particularly tragic. Like famous captive Tilikum, Duke weighed 12,000 pounds and had a collapsed dorsal fin. Like Tilikum, he was less maneuverable and subdominant. Big subdominant and with no mother and no status, he was bullied, raked, and beaten up. Tormented in his captive world, Duke would beat his head against the stage with such force you could feel the impact of it during the shows. His jaws would bleed regularly. Duke had no viable teeth left from grinding them on the walls. My brother describes applying black zinc oxide to his back and dorsal fin as his skin would blister from lying in the Florida sun. During the night, hundreds of mosquitoes would land on Duke's back, biting his blistered skin until he decided to move and swim below the surface. Another orca, Taku, was captive-born, but no less tragic. As Jeff watched Taku grow, he noticed that even at almost 3 years old, Taku was still nudging his mom, Katina, for milk and sometimes nursing. Unfortunately for Taku and mom, Katina, when he became sexually mature, he impregnated her, producing a daughter who was also his sister in 2006. This inbred orca Nalani was created by the confines of SeaWorld tanks. It sent a shockwave through SeaWorld, and Taku was quickly shipped away from the only family he ever knew, dying just 1 year later. Duke and Taku both had similar deaths in unnatural environments away from their families. In '90, Duke died of St. Louis virus encephalitis. In 2007, at the age of 14, Taku died of West Nile virus. Both of these viruses were transmitted by mosquito bites and are typically not fatal. These viruses only attack the brain of victims with compromised immune systems. Both Duke and Taku had teeth rot, gum disease, and were chronically medicated. Their tragic deaths are not featured in SeaWorld's literature. Dr. Jett tells similar stories. Watching Winnie, a very sweet, docile female, being continuously harassed, chased, and beaten up was heartbreaking for him. He watched her cower in the corner or come out of the water onto the slide-out areas to escape attacks. During one event, she was raked and bleeding so badly that the entire pool system was darkened with her blood. As a result, the next show had to be canceled. John also describes listening to Goodrum emit distressing vocals so loud they could be heard everywhere through the park, even the employee parking lot. Shamu shows were canceled during her chilling vocalizations, which she would repeat unchanged for hours on end. Gudrun died from internal hemorrhaging after SeaWorld vets manually pulled a dead fetus out of her body. Hearing the details of how she died and how long it took her to die is terribly painful. Orca Nayar died a slow death after 2 years of being force-fed her food and medications. Nayar's mom, Gudrum, and the other whales had little to do with her as she was disabled and permanently separated from them. Nayar's situation, like the others mentioned, made John's view of killer whale captivity made him view captivity in a completely different light. In terms of care, John and Jeff were always concerned by the number and amount of drugs the whales were given. It seems natural to ask, what is it about captivity that requires so much medical intervention? We think that the dental teeth damage and drilling procedures that occur at places like SeaWorld is probably the most tragic consequence of captivity, and I know that Dr. Visser went over that. Exploitation and marginalization within the industry extends to low-wage employees, most without benefits. Injured trainers are afraid to speak up. Government administrators are pressured into changing reports or citations, not to mention the awful conditions for many other animals. We hope these stories of voices are not shallowed down by corporate money and slick PR. The Florida-based animal circus and captivity industry has fallen out of favor and is in major decline. As of 2014, only 21% of Americans actually favor captivity. SeaWorld has announced plans to expand to China and the Middle East, where laws and views are more lenient. The expansion globally will only encourage more captives worldwide. SeaWorld's financials showed huge debt, multiple shareholder and class action lawsuits, yet they continue to spend enormous amounts on lobbying and advertising. As attendance continues to drop, are local citizens going to be left bailing out this project? California leads the world in innovation, tech, green energy, genetics, aerospace. We should be seeking something better for our state, not propping up a dying industry with bigger pools. SeaWorld could be real heroes if they evolved into the 21st century and changed their business model. Today, let's seek the right side of history, be environmentally sound, transparent, cruelty-free, and uplifting, something all of California can be proud of. Blue world is old world. I urge you to vote no on this old world expansion.
Good morning, I'm John Hargrove, and I'm here today to ask you to deny SeaWorld's request for a permit to expand their killer whale tanks. I am a former senior killer whale trainer for SeaWorld with 12 years of experience with the company at both SeaWorld of Texas and California, resigning my position in August 2012. I was also a supervisor of killer whale training with Marineland in France. The health effects due to confinement and captivity is irrefutable. Due to boredom and stress, the whales peel and eat the paint in the tanks. They also wear down their teeth by excessively rubbing their teeth on the concrete and bite the stage and ledges from frustration, causing the teeth to fracture. This damage forces us to manually drill the teeth with a metal drill bit without anesthetic. Trainers, not vets, perform this risky procedure. Once the holes are drilled, the whale must endure daily, multiple invasive irrigations with a powered machine with a hydrogen peroxide solution as we dig into the tooth with a metal catheter. This now causes the whales to be at greater risk to deadly infections, and in fact, this has happened. Captive orcas are heavily medicated. They are treated for ulcers from chronic stress and for countless infections from multiple types of antibiotics. We have medicated a whale for epilepsy, and yet we still swam with him despite the obvious dangers associated with both his condition and his mental state being compromised due to the side effects of the medication. Often we witness self-mutilation as whales due to boredom expressed obsessive behavior that caused injury to their faces and rostrums, which became bloodied and bruised and often caused them to what we refer to as shutting down or refusing to eat. Despite our best efforts to extinguish this undesirable behavior through SeaWorld training principles, we were unsuccessful. Inbreeding has now become a serious issue. Despite the fact that science has proven orcas don't inbreed in their natural habitat, these social mechanisms break down in captivity. Taku inbred his mother, and Keto, who killed Alexis Martinez and the uncle of Kohana, has currently inbred her twice by the age of 8, resulting in 2 calves. She rejected both calves, and the second died within their first year of life. Important to note is that natural breeding in the wild occurs between 13 to 15 years of age. This brings me to discuss the artificial insemination program at SeaWorld, which began in the year 2000, and I was on the team that performed the first successful AI procedure in the world on Kasaka. I have trained this procedure many times through the years and in control of the whales for the procedure when performed. There are 2 very disturbing aspects about this. First, SeaWorld continues to ignore science by artificially inseminating females with sperm from orcas they would never interact with in the wild and certainly not breed with. By forcing this unnatural behavior on these captive orcas, SeaWorld is creating hybrid orcas that have no true social identity and do not exist in the natural world. Kalia, at the age of 8 in 2013, was forcibly artificially inseminated. At only 8 years old, she is just a kid and years away from her body being fully developed. This abomination has led the world-renowned and respected Dr. Jane Goodall to come forward and issue a public statement just a few months ago stating, quote, SeaWorld's breeding program is no longer defensible by science and should be shut down, end quote. SeaWorld still states they do not separate mothers from their calves, even posting an image of Takara and her calf Kohana on their SeaWorld website, even though Takara is in Texas and Kohana is in Spain. After taking Takara from her mother Kasaka at age 12, even though they would stay together for life in the wild, SeaWorld chose not to tell the public the rest of the story. That Kohana was taken from Takara at only 3 years old when shipped to Spain to be inbred by her uncle Keto, nor the fact that Takara was taken from her second calf, Trua, also aged 3, when they shipped her to Texas while she was 7 months pregnant with Sakari. After I testified before the California State Assembly for proposed legislation AB 2140, corporate vet Christopher Dole answered, no, we don't separate mothers from their calves, then only to switch his story to say, only in rare cases if the calf is in imminent danger. I am certain that SeaWorld is responsible for taking at least 19 calves from their mothers, and only 2 of these were medically necessary due to extreme aggression by the mother toward the calf. SeaWorld now attempts to classify a calf as a nursing animal still dependent on their mother, and therefore acceptable to separate them after they stop nursing. Science has proven these animals stay together for life in the wild, and SeaWorld separated Keat from his mother, Kalina, when he was only 20 months old and still nursing. As an apprentice trainer in 1993-1994, I was responsible for detailed documentation of the whale's behavior, including calf nursing. It was observed and documented that Keat still had milk in his mouth, still nursing Kalina when she was shipped back to Florida. Anyone who challenges or disagrees with SeaWorld's business model of keeping captive animals for entertainment and profit are immediately labeled as extreme animal rights activists in an effort to discredit them. I reported potentially unsafe working conditions at SeaWorld of California to Cal OSHA. An inspection by the agency resulted in current multiple safety violations and for preventing employees from reporting workplace hazards. I have been named on the government's witness list for this case. One only needs to go to the official NOAA government site to see all the ages and causes of death of all SeaWorld-owned whales to realize that despite what they try to sell you with their commercials and what they told you today, these animals are not living anywhere near their equivalent of their wild counterparts and are dying in painful and drastically premature ways. It's documented. It is in black and white. You cannot dispute it. SeaWorld's proposed expansion is deceiving. The expansion already includes existing real estate or tank space, the already built Dine with Shamu pool. Regardless, when you hear from the prominent marine mammal scientists and researchers today, the expansion does not offer any meaningful improvement in the life of an orca compared to the life they live in their natural habitat. SeaWorld's world-class veterinary care only exists to treat the ravaging consequences from living in captivity. Wild orcas do not need their teeth drilled or be pumped full of drugs to treat infections, anxiety, or ulcers. Hyperaggression between whales forced into confined spaces who would never interact in the wild has resulted in a death of an orca in California, which has never been observed in the wild. Under management direction, I lied to the public for years, denying we use chlorine and other lethal chemicals in our water with the animals. I also lied about being disciplined for announcing over the radio that we could smell elevated ozone levels because we did not want the public to pick up on that. We were also directed to lie about circumstances about aggressions between us and the whales, despite the fact our aggressions with the whales were clearly documented. The SeaWorld spokesperson directly lied to the public, saying the trainers did not believe the whale's behavior was aggressive, which was patently false. There is a blatant lack of transparency by this company, and history of retaliating against anyone who speaks out against them is severe. SeaWorld sent multiple legally threatening letters to me warning me not to publish my book and threatened to file an injunction to stop it. After SeaWorld publicly denied they sent any legally threatening letters to me, a San Diego-based journalist had one of the letters independently verified as a legally threatening letter. Withholding food from the whales, this is very important, for behavioral reasons is common by some trainers, including management. All 5 former SeaWorld trainers, also featured in Blackfish, supported my claim, and the animal training records, which SeaWorld refuses to release, proves it. A judge has already ruled SeaWorld cannot claim their training techniques and protocols are trade secrets performed these techniques and because they performed these techniques in front of thousands of public guests. Caging and enslaving these animals so that you can have a fun day at SeaWorld is not the answer. An expansion of any size does not benefit the whales. SeaWorld has already stated they have no intention to stop their breeding program nor their artificial insemination program, which means this incremental amount of space will soon be filled with more whales and whales artificially engineered that don't exist in the natural world. Important to note about this construction is that certain whales, like Kasaka in California, have a long history of becoming seriously agitated during construction, escalating to coming out of the pool, attempting to aggressively grab unsuspecting trainers. Approval of this expansion will promote this industry worldwide and encourage wild captures elsewhere. Captivity is still captivity, no matter how gentle the jailer or size of the cell. These animals belong in their natural habitat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. That completes that presentation. We will now be going into our lunch recess and closed session, and I anticipate being back in this room